Hey Subboxers, it's Heather with Running with Scissors, and today we are going to do the tutorial on March's subscription box, which is this cute little bunny napkin holder or decoration. It could be either or, like a place setting. You are going to make 4 of these, but for the tutorial and the time length, we are only going to make 1, and you would do all 4 of them the exact same. So during the demonstration here, I will only be doing 1, painting 1. So for your box, make sure that you're painting all the pieces to create 4 of these. So you'll be doing everything simultaneously, and you'll in the end have 4 of these little guys. Okay, so we are going to set this cutie patootie aside. Let's see if you can see a little close-up of him. Isn't he adorable? And we are going to get started. So let's see what you have inside your subscription box. I have a new video set up once again. My brilliant teenager, of course teenagers know so much more than you do, was working in the studio with me this weekend. And I asked him, told him what I wanted to do, and he's like, oh, Mom, you can do that from your iPhone and your Apple TV on the screen in the studio. So I am now able to record right here. You're not looking at me, but I can watch what I'm doing up on my TV screen as I record the video and make sure that you can see everything I am doing. So it's really kind of brilliant, and I've had it all along and never knew about it. Okay, so in the box, you'll have, of course, this is going to be a QR code on the lid. This one doesn't have it yet because this video is just now being done. So there'll be a QR code to scan to get to this tutorial video. And of course, there is written instructions. You're going to have a cello bag. It's hard to see on the camera because they're just white, and this has 8 very tiny wires in them. They're just floral wires. These are going to be used to help shape the ears. You're going to have, of course, your big ovals for your bunny bodies. Now, inside this bag and in between the ovals are the snouts and the whiskers. Now, we put them like that so it would prevent them from getting broken. Okay, so those are in there. You're going to have a bag of all the paws and the tails and the noses. You're going to have 4 linen napkins folded together. You're going to have a very long length of jute, a super glue. I have a super glue and a wood glue. You're going to have paint, a large white container of white, a small container of black, and you'll just have a little tiny pot of pink. There's going to be a fine brush. There is going to be a white wedge, and then there is going to be a yellow sponge. All right. Let's tuck all that back in there. And set this guy aside. And then let's get started. So what I would like you to do first is either with a baby wipe or a paper towel that's wet, I would like you to take all of your large ovals and the towel or wipe and just wipe the edges off. Because I want you to remove the soot that comes from the laser. If we don't get that off, it's going to get on the white linen napkin, and we don't want that because then it's going to make it all dirty. So we're just going to do that, wipe all that off. And do that with all of the ovals. You'll have 8 of them because remember, you're doing 4 and I'm only doing 1. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our white paint and we are going to paint all of our bodies. Now remember, the instructions might tell you to do something a little differently than what I do on camera, but it's either way, you either follow the instructions or you follow me on the camera, or you do a combination of both, as long as you get all the steps in there and in the order that they should go in. It doesn't matter which set you follow. You can use a written as a backup. All right, so we're going to paint both of our ovals. In your case, you're going to paint all 8. You only have to paint the one side. We're going to sandwich them together so it makes a little bit thicker of a bunny body. Now, at the same time, I'm also going to paint all the pads of my feet. Again, you're going to have, you'll have 16. I'm only going to paint 8, or 4, I'm sorry. Because each bunny gets 4 total, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. Now you will see that there's score marks on these bunny feet, and that's to help you know where to paint the pads of the feet, because we didn't give you a whole bunch of little tiny cutouts, because that would just take forever to paint and to glue, and you'd probably get frustrated, because we gave you 4 of these little bunnies. Now you don't have to use them as table place cards, of course, or place settings. They can just be decoration, but they are super cute. So either way, however you want to use them is fine. And I'm also going to paint my snout. All right, so these the snout has the whiskers attached to it, and the eyes, but sorry, I've got to try and figure this out here. I need to be way ahead. But I'm just going to paint the snout. We'll paint the eyes and the whiskers in a little bit here. Just like that. I'll get it, guys. I know, I'm sorry. All right, we want to make sure that we put a couple of coats on everything, and of course, because we paint so lightly, by the time we get to the last piece, our first piece is dry, so that's the case here, and I'm going to go ahead and put a second coat of paint on my bunny bodies. And in your case, you're going to be painting 4 sets of these, so of course, by the time you get to the end, yours definitely will be dry. Now, if you want to, and when you're all done painting your pieces and your second coats are all done, if you want to paint the edges of your bunnies, you can. Just keep in mind that that paint will soak in and it will turn like a slight shade of yellow because of that being burned with the laser. Okay, we're going to let this dry real quick so we can get gluing it together. But, let's see, I forgot my snout. Let's get a second coat on my snout. And put a second coat on this guy. Now we're going to let all this dry, but once it's dry, we're going to glue it. So let's just give it a minute to dry. In your case, you probably won't have to wait because you are going to be painting 4 sets of these. So by the time you're done painting your last one, your first set's going to be dry and you're going to be able to glue everything together really quickly. So we're going to come back in just a second. Okay, our bodies are all dry now, so we are going to glue them together. And for the large oval bodies, we're going to glue them together with the wood glue that you got in your subscription box this month. So these are in sealed little like eyedropper bottles. So you have to break the seal on that and open those up. Now they do have these little control top tips on them, and you might have to pop that off if you can't get a good squeeze out of it. So let's see what happens here. Now we just want to put the glue in the center, because if it's too close to the edges, the wood glue is going to squish out. So let's just get that in the center just like that. Now I did not pop the tip off of this one, and it works just fine. So I don't think you have to pop that tip off. Okay, so now we're gonna sandwich our two ovals together with the unpainted sides together. And when you do this, you just wanna make sure that they match up all over. If it feels like it's too pointy at one end and not at the other, this should be a perfect oval, but who knows? Sometimes it might not fit quite right. You might have to spin the top and the bottom around just to make sure it fits right, okay? Just wherever you can get it all flush all the way around. And we're gonna set this aside and we're gonna let this dry. Now, wood glue takes about 5 minutes to set up. So if you wanna just push this aside and you wanna set something a little bit heavy on it, then you can do that to let it smush together really well. But I'm just gonna set this aside and I'm gonna keep going. So make sure, remember, you're doing this all in force, so do everything in force. All right, once you get all of those glued together and set aside, you can start working on everything else while those dry. So next, I am going to paint my pads of my feet, of all my little bunny feet. So again, I talked about how there was a score. You see those score marks. Now I'm gonna take my pink paint and my fine brush that I got in my kit, and I'm just gonna paint all of these pads pink. Now if you don't like how dark your pink is, you can lighten that on up with some of your white. But all right, let me see if I can get this to show up for you. A little bit of a glare there. I think it's because the lighting is so good. Now I just spin it around and just do a swipe right along the edge of the score mark, just like that. And I'm gonna keep on going. I'm actually gonna move my paint over so it's a little closer to me. And of course, we all know that I am left and right-handed, but I paint better left-handed, so everything's gotta be on my left-hand side. Now you're going to do this with all of your feet. They'll only need one coat, because when you put paint on with a brush, it goes on thick enough that one coat will do. Now I think it's easiest to hold the foot in one hand, whatever hand you do not paint with, and then paint with your other hand, and you can use your fingers to support your painting hand to keep it steady. So use the fingers of your opposite hand to support your painting hand. So it's just like coloring. You want to go around the outside edges first and then fill in the center. And then just turn your piece. So the part that you're outlining or painting is always at the top. And just like that, you have your second foot. All right, and there's all my feet painted. Now while I got my pink paint out, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna paint my nose. So make sure you paint all your noses. Set him aside to dry. And then I'm going to move on to my black paint to paint my eyes and my whiskers and do some detail work. So let's clean my brush out. Okay, so now I'm going to take my black paint and my paintbrush and I'm going to come back to my snout and I'm just going to paint these eyes here. Now our nose sits right where that curve is. Let's see if I can show you here. See these curves on both sides of the eyes? Our nose butts right up to that. So we don't have to worry about getting our eyes perfect down where it meets the snout because the nose is going to cover that. So we're just going to go ahead and paint our eyes down to where they actually meet this whole piece, okay? Let's see if that makes sense. Okay, now we're going to paint the whiskers. Now the whiskers, we've got to be pretty careful about this. We only want to paint up to where the whiskers meet the round of the snout. So we're just going to paint up to that spot, just carefully. And we're going to do that on both sides and make sure for you, you're doing all 4 snouts. Now your black may need 2 coats, so go ahead and just work through all your pieces and then come back, and if it needs a second coat, just put a second coat on it real quick. All right, now I'm going to clean my brush again, and this time I'm not going to use the bristle end of my brush. This time I'm gonna use the handle end of the brush, the tip. I'm gonna dot that in my black paint. Just want a little bit of black paint on the end of that. I'm gonna see what it looks like on my table cover here because I don't want it too dark or too prominent. You could also use like the tip of a needle or a pin or a toothpick even. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make 3 spots on the snout, like where the whiskers would be coming out. Okay, so I'm just going to right by the whiskered area. I'm gonna do 3 dots. And I'm gonna do that on both sides. All right, there we go. There we have that. Okay. Now we have to wait once again for all of that to dry. However, on your end, it's probably drying much faster because, well, not drying faster, but yours is dry because you're going through 4 sets and I only have 1 here. So by the time you get all 4 of your sets done, you can come back and start your next step. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my white wedge and I am going to take my black and my white paint, and I have mine on a paper plate here, but it takes very, very little black and white to make a gray, okay? So you guys can mix this with your paintbrush if you want to, however you want to do it, but I'm just putting a little dab of black on my white sponge, and I'm going to mix it into my white paint here on my tray until I get the shade of gray that I want. Now I'm going to use this gray to paint my tails and to add some color to my bunny bodies. So you have to mix up enough gray, but you don't need tons of it. The one thing to remember, the biggest thing to remember, is you can always add more black to make the gray darker, but you can't take it away. You'll run out of white paint trying to make a gray if you put too much black in it. So just add a little tiny dot of black at a time until you get it mixed in to the gray shade that you want. Okay, I think that's perfect for me, and because I'm only doing 1 set, I don't need that much paint. You guys will need a little more, so just keep that in mind. I'm gonna dab off my excess gray there on the side of my plate, and I'm gonna paint my bunny tail gray. All right, there's my bunny tail painted gray. And I know it probably looks white on that screen because I am right underneath a light. I will know for next time that I have to move my table so I'm not in the direct light. I thought it would be good, but it turns out it's not really all that great. Okay, so now I am going to add some color to my bunny bodies. These are all dry. The glue is all set up now. I'm going to take that same gray sponge that I was just painting my tail with, and I didn't load up any more paint on it. The paint's almost out of it. There's not very much there. That's how I want it for this step. I'm going to take my edge and I'm going to take my sponge and I'm just going to drag across the bunny body just a little bit to put some color in there. Now you can go directly across so you can see some of the gray right on the bunny body if you want as well. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do the same thing. Now you notice I did not put any more paint on my sponge because I do not feel like it needs it. I feel like there's plenty of paint in there yet. I just have to press a little bit harder to work that paint down. But there's still plenty of paint. Okay, now you can do this as heavy or as light as you want. Let's see if I can get... all right, that's a little better. That blocks out a lot of that light so you can see what it looks like. All right. One side you can see I did a little bit heavier. That's okay. Okay. All right, now, once you make it through all of those, of course, it'll be dry in no time because it just takes a couple of seconds for that to dry. So we are going to take our super glue and we're going to start assembling our pieces. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to glue my snout or my nose onto my snout. Now remember, super glue will squish out as well, so you just want a little bit of glue in the middle of the piece. If you get too much glue on it, just dab that off on your table cover. And I'm just going to glue that snout right down up by the eyeballs. I want it to follow the line of the actual snout cut out because that's the way it's designed. And remember, pressure activates super glue and you only have a second. So once you put that down, it's down. Okay, so there is my snout. And then I'm going to take my body and I'm going to start gluing on my feet. Now, the feet go in different directions on the front and the back. So make a decision. Is this going to be your front or is this going to be your back? Now, we did put the drawing on the instructions for you as well so you can see how it should go. So let's make this my bunny back. I'm going to glue my tail on, super glue in the center of my tail. I'm just going to decide where I want it. I think right there is pretty perfect. Pressure activates. And now I'm going to put my feet on. So this is the back. So my feet, I'm going to actually use this one because this guy's a little off. On the back, your feet go like this. All right, they're turned away from each other because it's like your bunny is diving into something and you're looking at his hiney, right? Now, we want to make sure that our feet do not extend down here. We don't want them hanging. That's super cute, right? And that's actually the way we did it first, but it didn't work out, so we had to change it. We would have had to have like 4 ovals in there to be thick enough to hold the napkin into place. And we didn't want to do that. So you're going to want your feet to come up and not stick off the edge of the oval. So just line them up where you would want them. Pick one up, put some glue on it, press it back down. Do the same thing with the next one. Okay, then you're going to flip them over. Now make sure when you flip them, you're flipping them so your feet are on the bottom. So you don't want it upside down. You want to make sure that you're doing that right. Now on the front side, your feet are going to go like this because he's sitting down, right? And you're going to line this guy up. Line everything up. There we go. Pick a piece up, put some glue on it, put it back down. Now the same thing on the front here. You want to make sure that they're not sticking off the edges. And then you're going to glue your snout as well. All right. Now you're going to do that with all 4 of your bodies. All 4 of your bodies. And once you get those all done, you're going to set them aside and we're going to start rolling the napkin, the linen napkin. All right, so we're gonna open our napkins up, and you're gonna take your napkin and you're gonna fold it in a triangle so both of your points are together. Okay, just like that. It's hard to see all of that on my screen like this, but you get the idea of what you're doing here, right? Now, I want to roll from my point up to the long edge. So I'm gonna start at my point and I'm gonna roll this. And it's about a 1/2 inch roll. So the roll is not big like this. It is about a 1/2 inch. You should make sure you clean your hands so you don't get paint all over your napkins, by the way. Okay, so about a 1/2 inch roll. And I'm just gonna roll that all the way up till I get to the end. Okay, there we go, right? So we've got this whole thing rolled up. Now, I'm going to take my wires. You've got 8 wires. You're gonna take one piece and just slide it into the napkin at each end. Let's see if I can show you. I'm just sliding this wire down into the roll at each end. It does not have to go the whole entire length of the napkin. We just want it to assist in shaping the ears. So I'm gonna slide the other end in. And now I'm gonna take my napkin and just kind of roll it so the open or the final piece that is rolled, right? So the end piece is up on my table so I can have it here. And I'm gonna find the center. So I'm gonna bring both of my ends up and I'm gonna find the center. So here's my center. I'm gonna try and do this down so you guys can see, but it might be easier if you work in an upright position. Then I'm gonna take my bunny and I'm gonna lay my bunny right down in the center there. And I'm gonna bring my linen napkin or up together to the ears, come to the center. And then I'm gonna take a piece of jute. You have a very long length. You're gonna want to take and just cut it. Fold it in half twice so you get 4, and cut it on the fold so you have 4 pieces, okay? And it will be more than you need. But so I'm gonna take my jute and I am going to bring my ears up to the top and I'm going to tie my jute around to hold my ears together. Make a double knot in my jute. And then I'm going to tie it into a little bow, just like tying your shoelaces. And then I'm going to trim my jute. Just trim the ends. And there's your bunny. Now I am going to take and I'm just going to bend my ears how I want them. They won't take much to shape them because that wire will assist quite a bit. And then you have these cute little bunnies to display as place settings or as decor around the house. How cute. Totally functional if you want them to be, but decor as well. All right, guys, hope that you love this subscription box as much as we loved designing and putting it together for you. I don't think you'll find anything like this out there. This was quite a unique project and one that we certainly loved doing for you. All right, thanks so much. Take care.